It is hard to find money that has not passed through Costa Rocciosa. Along the way, it picks up things like culture and language. Brixfin Fiddlespan, Chancellor of Paulport, 2909 AC. Made up of innumerable city-states locked in an ever-escalating game of one-upsmanship for prestige, it is sometimes easy to write off Costa Rocciosa in the contemporary era. But if anyone stops to think about the things that make daily life function, financing, art, or trade, it is hard to separate those things from Costa Rocciosa. Demographically dominated by halflings, the trade networks bring many other peoples and cultures to the area as well. One of the first civilizations to emerge from the Cataclysm's mini-ice age in eastern Clausen were the city-states of eastern Costa Rocciosa. For about 300 years, approximately 900 AC to 1200 AC, the area flourished. Trade and philosophy were expanded, and while primitive compared to pre-Cataclysm standards, art and science too began to accelerate. It is speculated that the halflings were the first in the area to come out of the Cataclysm because of the milder climate they found themselves in, as well as their smaller bodies needing less food, and leading to an abundance of resources. As the city-states would rise and fall, they would weaken themselves to a rising power in the west, but not before spreading their culture all across Costa Rocciosa. By 1200 AC, the city of Nandria had defeated its western rival of Antios, near the current town of Woodshade. After the final defeat of Antios, the city was razed and a forest planted to bury the city, giving Woodshade its name. This left Nandria unchallenged in the west, where it quickly expanded. Its expansion eastward was slower, but by 1550 AC, Nandria had reached the height of its territorial expansion, stretching from the edge of the Horns and the forlorn desert and across the lonely hills in the west, covering the whole of Costa Rocciosa, and stretching across the Gabona Plain and the Righteous Mountains to the eastern shore of the Shining Plains. At this point, the empire could no longer support outward expansion, though the occasional leader would try. As it began to feel the weight of both internal and external pressures. Internally, the pressure came from infighting and a lack of plunder from conquered lands. Externally, it came from raiders of all sorts, including Proto-Oghai in the west, as well as Yak folk, who were beginning to assert themselves throughout the Horns and smelled the blood in the water of a weakening state. To the west, raiders from Hein and Bosik, as well as early dwarvish maritime raiders, began to weaken the state further. The first blow to truly stagger the empire was when the elves invaded from the north, driving all the way to the Dalaskam Ocean and dividing the empire into two territories. The elves would continue to push east and west, while Bosik raiders would finish the job, bringing the last remnants of the Eastern Empire down in 1780 AC. The Western Empire would continue to contract until destroying itself in civil war. The city of Nandria was sacked in 1999 AC and never recovered. For centuries, different cities would claim to be its successor, but none would ever wield its power again. The eastern part of Costa Rocciosa settled into a more mundane existence, historically speaking, often subjected to the border conflicts with the houses of Kenyer before its unification, as well as more frequent raids by Shahuagin and technological stagnation. The western side would experience near constant warfare for the next 500 years, but would lead to a flourishing of trade and art that has continued to the present day. Two of the largest rivals are Valencia and Alid in the Bay of Glory. Currently, Valencia is the dominant power in the bay, with Alid rebuilding its strength after the war between the two in 2972 AC. As the invasion of Pericol began and the conflict threatened to spread, each of the two city-states began to amass allies and influence to present a united front, under their own leadership, of course, and not the others. As that conflict has subsided, the two power blocks in western Rocciosa have continued. The Cold War dynamic is shifting as more and more of the Rocciosan mercenary companies have moved north to take advantage of the opportunities provided by conflicts in Tallinn. How this will impact the politics of the region remains to be seen. For now, it continues much as it has in recent history. The eastern parts of Costa Rocciosa in a more rural and peaceful setting, while the west has more trade and industry and a constant state of simmering conflict. Due to the trade that flows between through Costa Rocciosa, there are many peoples represented, but the population remains dominated by the halfling cultures that has persisted for centuries.